The next day, a black car pulled into what looked like an abandoned neighborhood. Jiang stepped out of the car and said that whoever was going to look for this filthy slum definitely needed some kind of GPS. He had to walk all the way to the top floor where Grandpa Lai was staying so that he could deliver the supplies. From the looks of it, the old man was a broke fool, and Jiang said he had a screw loose in his head for living in such a cheap place. Before knocking on the door, he remembered to take out the supplies from the space ring first, so he wouldn't have to get into a long explanation with the old man. After setting out all the boxes, he knocked on the door, and Lai crawled with his rickety legs to open it. As he opened the door, he already started saying that he would pay his rent by next Monday, but he had no idea who he was talking to at first. It was obvious that there were barely any working brain cells left in the man's head. Seconds later, his eyes sparked open, and he recognized that the person in front of him was Jiang. He was even more surprised to see the huge number of boxes that surrounded Jiang. It's as if his eyes finally started working well, and he asked Jiang what all the boxes were for. Jiang said he'd explain later and asked the man to help move all the boxes into his home. They had to be discreet about it so that the nosy neighbors wouldn't think they were doing something illegal. Jiang ended up doing most of the moving because the old man was an incompetent piece of garbage. Lai wished he was like the young folk because of how much stamina they had. He said young folk like Jiang could move so much stuff in one go without being out of breath. But I'm pretty sure moving just one box nearly sent him 6 feet under. When they were done, check the room and the door to make sure it was sturdy enough. While he was still looking around, he told Lai to listen well to what he was about to say. The old man's eyes and memory were barely working well. He was definitely expecting too much if thought that Lai's ears would be working normally. Jiang told Lai that he should use the supplies wisely and that they would last him for half a year. Then a picture caught his attention, while the old man was telling Jiang to keep the supplies in his room because they would be moving in soon. Jiang didn't even pay any attention to the old man's words. He had given him the supplies, so if the old man wanted to continue being a fool, Jiang wasn't going to be bothered. The photo that caught his attention showed Grandpa Lai and a very beautiful, brown-haired young lady. He immediately recognized the pretty girl as Shanshan, probably one of the girls he had clapped in his previous life. Jiang didn't think she'd be the crazy old man's granddaughter. He asked Lai if his granddaughter was named Meng Shanshan, and Lai was surprised that he knew who his granddaughter was. He asked Jiang how he knew, considering that he had never mentioned her name to him before. Jiang's face suddenly turned very cold and serious as he asked Lai where Shanshan was. Now that his hot chick was in the picture, he couldn't possibly abandon her and her grandfather. Lai told him that she was still studying back in their hometown, but once they were able to move into Jiang's house, she would come around. In a flashback, we see Jiang and Shanshan sitting together, while she puts her head down and cries like an annoying brat. She complained about being the one who caused trouble for her grandfather. Jiang had a sad look on his face as the scenes flashed through his mind. He remembered that in his past life, Shanshan said her grandfather risked his life to rescue her from the captured high school. The old man was able to save her, but he met his maker afterward. With that in mind, Jiang swore to make it up to her so the same events wouldn't be repeated. He was determined to survive and make babies with her this time around. He told Grandpa Lai that he couldn't move houses anymore. Lai had a shocked expression and probably thought that Jiang had completely lost his mind. He thought Jiang was going to change his mind and begged the boy to reconsider his decision. But Jiang told him that the world was going to fall into ruin the next day and humans were going to be plunged into a cesspit of suffering. The house and his granddaughter's school status weren't going to matter in the face of all this. The old man was confused by Jiang's words. He had a perplexed look on his face, thinking that Jiang was probably the one with dead brain cells. Either that or the boy was mentally disturbed. Jiang told him to guide them to the school where Shanshan was so that they could pick her up, and he would have a new place arranged for them. The only expression that ran through Lai's face was confusion and fear. He told Jiang that he sounded like a deranged idiot, and that he had no idea what Jiang was talking about. This wasn't making things easy for Jiang. He needed to look for a way to explain things to the stupid old man, but he was too old to understand anything, and they were running out of time. He had a very worried expression on his face as he thought about how to handle this. He began to explain the concept of hunger to the old man, something the broke fool should have been quite experienced with. Jiang explained how miserable and terrible the people in the famine era would be. Grandpa Lai didn't understand how such a tragedy could befall those in such a peaceful and prosperous world. He didn't believe such a thing would be possible in their time. With no other choice, Jiang pulled out his ring and sucked all the supplies back into the spatial dimension. The old man was frightened as this happened, and he didn't even know what to say. In the blink of an eye, all the items were gone from the room. Lai asked him what happened to the items and assumed it was some kind of dark magic. A powerful aura surrounded Jiang, and in a forceful tone, he told the old man that he had superpowers and that he could see the future. He said he wanted to live, and he also wanted Shanshan to live so they could make all kinds of happy noises together. Then he stated that from then onwards, everything was going to be done according to his words, and Lai would not be able to defy him. He demanded to be told where Shanshan's school was because there was barely any time left. They left the house and got into Jiang's car. If you guys want the next part, then complete the aim of 100 likes and 100 subscribers. If you complete that, then I will upload the next part. Otherwise, I can't upload it. But Lai was still looking at him as if he were an insane villain. They sped through the streets and quickly arrived at the school. Jiang asked the old man if he knew Shanshan's class and dormitory. Luckily, the old man knew, which made him quite useful. I can't imagine the horrors Jiang would have put him through if he decided to be incompetent. They hurried to wherever she was, with the clock ticking away fast. Meanwhile, in the middle of the school, we see a bunch of delinquents harassing a girl for some silly reason. The girl who was being harassed was Shanshan, and she was getting whooped by some illiterate bullies because they were jealous that a guy liked her. Rather than trying to get some good Riz skills so the guy could notice them, they decided to take it out on the poor girl. Shanshan was looking bruised up, and she tried to explain that the guy, Zheng Xiaochen, was the one who liked her, and it was all one-sided. Sadly, the stupid bullies were too dumb to understand, and they thought she was just making excuses. They kicked her and pulled her hair to make up for their low self-esteem. They didn't believe that Xia Cheng was the one desperately trying to get into Shanshan's pants, and they felt she was silly for mocking him. Shanshan made some happy noises as her hair got pulled. I guess that's the kind of thing she was into. A voice called out to the stupid bullies and asked them what they were doing, but the girls looked unimpressed by whoever showed up. Luckily for Shanshan, it was Jiang and her grandfather who came to save her. One of the bullies recognized Lai as the useless grandfather. Shanshan was surprised to see her grandfather and asked why he was at her school. You'd think she'd be grateful to him for coming to save her pathetic butt. He screamed at the bullies and told them to let go of his granddaughter. Jiang, who stood behind him, looked like he was itching to give the stupid girls a piece of his strength. The other dumb-looking guys approached Lai, and they were holding knives and bats. They told the old man not to get into young people's business and he should stop meddling in their affairs. The blonde-haired leader walked up to him with his knife, but the old man stood his ground. Grandpa Lai rushed the guy with the knife and said he was mannerless for bullying his classmates. While they tussled, someone else was about to send Lai to the pearly gates with a bat. He swung down, aiming for Lai's neck, but Jiang caught the bat and saved the man from an early grave. Can you even call it an early grave? Jiang mocked the bully for being so young and learning how to be a thug. Of course, the bullies weren't fazed by Jiang's weak looks. They saw him as another pathetic, broke guy who was trying to act tough and assumed he was Shanshan's little brother. With one kick, Jiang sent one of them flying through the air like a frisbee. Thanks to that, the bullies took him seriously and said that he must have been trained, so they decided to gang up on him together. Their silly tactics didn't rattle Jiang, as he kept a serious look on his face. The idiotic bullies had no idea what they were in for. After circling around him, the one with the bat rushed and swung his weapon, but Jiang quickly ducked to avoid the attack. Thanks to his enhanced strength, his reflexes were off the charts as well. He grabbed the idiot by the collar and tossed him to the ground with one hand. That one quickly got his lights knocked out as his head slammed into the ground. The last one rushed Jiang with his dagger. Jiang weaved through the attack and kicked the fool to the ground, nearly sending him 6 feet under. After he was done dealing with them, the girls started shaking in fear and asked him what he was going to do with them. They thought they were about to get defiled, but their milk jugs just weren't Jiang's type. He slowly walked towards them and started smacking them around the place. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, then don't forget to subscribe and like the video.